Welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome. So you join me really picking up essentially where I left off in the last video. I'm just clearing the swarf off my block. Very important to keep your block nice and clean. Just working my way through the second layer of this 4, maybe 5 layer reduction linocut print. And I'm just going to speed things up a little here because as lovely and meditative as it is to watch me doing this in real time, we would be here for hours. So here again you can see how the tip of my tool generally doesn't move all that much when I'm doing all these curly whirly twisty circular kind of details. And now we can get on with printing. The fun, messy part. So I want this green to be darker than the green used in the first layer. Excuse me. I also want it to be a little on the cool side, just a little bit more blue in it. I know that kind of goes against the grain of what I spoke about in the first video, where I spoke about if I'm doing a reduction print, I will broadly go from light to dark, so printing the light stuff first and then the darker layers I print last, and also from cool to warm, because that's how things tend to work in the visual spectrum. Yeah, for some purposes, sometimes it's better to err on the side of light to dark than cool to warm. So, and a lot of this it's kind of trial by error, and I'm working by eye. I'm working up quite a lot of ink here because I need to stretch this across about 25 prints, give or take. And I don't want to have to record the precise proportionate measurements of everything as I'm working so that I can replicate it perfectly over subsequent prints. So I'm going to try and work out as much as I need to do the whole thing. And then if I have to make up a little bit more later, then I'll just live with it if it ends up looking a little bit different from all the rest, because it's Christmas cards. You know, it's low stakes. It doesn't matter. It's making delightful things for people who are not paying customers, frankly. Obviously, if I was doing edition prints or doing a large run of prints that I need to look exactly consistent across the whole range, then I would work out the proportions of yellow, blue, etc. that I need. I'm just flim-flamming a little bit, loading up my roller, taking a little bit of material at a time and working it one way and then working it another way. You can't really hear it so well in this footage, but you want to get a nice hiss when you're doing this. It's very pleasing, a nice sort of sticky hiss off that lovely rubber roller. And these are just cheapo plastic palettes that I'm using. Maybe someday when I have lots of space and money, I'll get a nice big sheet of glass to work off of, but we're not there yet. I do consider just doing the corners where I need these darker greens initially, but to be honest, I need it over, in various amounts over just about every quad here or there, so it makes more sense to just ink the entire block evenly, especially given the problem that raised its head in the previous video. So yeah, if you're not aware, please go watch that previous video first, because a really interesting pattern of ink reticulation has shown through on the first layer of printing. So I'm hoping that I can eliminate that to an extent with this round. I'm just going to go over and over and over with, it's just a regular hard roller, it's not a proper brayer or anything that I use. It works for me. As I've said in previous videos, the first print is always a duffer anyway, but I am interested to see if just going over with another layer has... No, it's exacerbated the problem. Okay, that's bad. That's so bad. But again, I have this horrible kind of decision. You know, I could just scrap the whole project and start again, but then people wouldn't get their Christmas cards until probably closer to Easter, I think, by this point, if I did. And I did think that starting sort of like first week in November for this project would leave me a decent amount of time. But yeah, I think one of my lessons from this project is definitely if I want to send out Christmas cards mid-December at the latest, I want to start making them around Halloween, which is fun. I'll have to make Halloween decorations, etc. Probably around May Day. I'm starting to see, as I'm working through multiple prints, you know, trying each time to just load the roller with as much material as possible to get enough coverage on the block to fill in all those nasty little bits of texture that have now become raised on the paper from the first print, without flooding the lovely texture that I have painstakingly carved out over the previous footage, which, you know, here it looks like it took me several minutes. I spent, you know, a number of hours working on that stuff, so I want to be able to preserve it. And you know, I like a bit of texture, I have to say, on my linocut prints. I know some people don't. It depends on the style. So I'm just going to plow on and work with what I've got. Something that I don't think we really saw in the previous video was drying time. I basically have this washing line set up in my sitting room to dry these for several days in between doing the different prints. I need about, because these are water-based, cheapo, frankly, like starter inks that I'm using, they will dry quite happily within a couple of days. But then I need to press them between some big heavy books for a couple of days after that, because even if I haven't diluted them at all, they're water-based and they will buckle just a little bit, so I need to flatten them out in between prints. And whilst that's all going on, I can crack on with carving the next layer, as you see here. I think I actually forgot to set my phone going, which is normally camera 1 for this sequence, so you get an awful lot of fat close-ups of my podgy fingers doing some nice low and slow passes at the darker greens which we just printed. So that's the layer that I'm taking away now. Whatever colour I should say you last printed, that's the next one you take away, is the way I think about it when doing a reduction print. And I meant to say as well, my inks can dry within 2 days. I prefer to leave them for 3 or 4, just to make sure any last bits of tackiness are gone, because I don't want any material sort of smudging or lifting onto the card in front when I stack them in between various big heavy textbooks to press them out. But that's enough waffle from me. Let's enjoy some nice, calming, sensory footage of real-time linocut carving. I feel it's important to indulge in some real-time footage for videos like this, because I don't want to take away from the fact that this takes so much time. It's a wonderful craft and I love doing it and I want to learn more about it, but you do need to carve out time. Carve. I apologise. Yeah, you do need to carve out time from your day, from your week, from your weekend to sit and just be one with your tools, one with your materials, and spend hours and hours picking at teeny tiny little pieces of lino. That being said, I think we've all got the idea and we've had enough of that, so let's pick up the pace a little, keep it going. Yeah, it's going back to what I say about the time that it takes, especially when you're doing reduction printing. You need to have patience. It's also an exercise in faith, as I have demonstrated with this project. I have to have absolute faith that even though the first layers are looking pretty squiffy, with that very patchy sort of reticulation just down one side, and I think if it was patchy it wouldn't matter so much, but it's the fact that it's straight down the middle is quite troubling. But I have faith in my abilities, I have faith in the process, and I do enjoy these quiet moments where I just disappear into what I'm doing. And it's the same for just about any craft, really. Drawing, cooking. I'd almost say doing the ironing as well. It's one of the few household chores that I actually don't resent. Not for the first hour, anyway. If it goes on much beyond that, even my patience starts to wear thin. But this, I can happily sit and carve away at teeny tiny little details all day, if left to my own devices. So I've been doing a little bit of research in between waiting for various things to dry and carving the next things into what could be causing my issue with the uneven print texture. And it seems that these sort of soft cut vinyl panels, like the one that I'm using, are quite prone to having an uneven surface. So if only I'd known this before, some artists will actually routinely sand the surface of a block of vinyl before they do any linocut printing on it. So you can see here, this is what I've done. I didn't manage to capture actually sanding the board. Maybe I should have done that. But essentially what I've done after cleaning it, I've sanded it back just with initially a medium grain and then a fine grain sanding block. So I'm hoping that will help to reduce the problem, because I've still got a couple of more coats to apply. So I'm hoping these will come good. And this layer is, as you can see, working on the warmer tones. I decided to do the berries and also the browns for the pine cone both at the same time, just because I'm pressed for time at this point. I only have a couple of weeks, I think, at this point until Christmas. So I really need to get these out. I need to allow for drying time, I need to allow time to press things, and also I'm keeping the faith here at this point. I really want these to look good. You know, it's a nice project for people whom I love. So I'm keen to just get it done and see the results. As always, I'm just using a thin piece of paper here to do the first one. First one's always dud, so I'm hoping that that tip of sanding the block down to even the surface up will help. And I should say, I didn't see any texture on the surface of the block before I started carving at all. I couldn't even feel it with my fingers as I was working on it. It's only in the print that you start to see it. And I'm quite happy with the results that we're getting now. I've loaded up the block and the roller quite well, I think, quite heavily. We're not getting quite so much of that reticulation, but I'm gonna have to do this several times over, so we're just speeding things up and up and up a little bit, because you don't need to see me do this time and time again. You might see I'm starting to see some little sort of greasy splodges on the backs of some of these. I have been so careful with trying to keep my hands clean and hanging these up to dry facing away from each other, so the ink shouldn't be transferring from one to the next. But just occasionally, when you're doing a huge run of prints and you're pressed for time, little mistakes can creep in there, but that's fine. That's life. It's proof that these are handmade. Oh God, are these handmade. I am seeing on and off, like, varying degrees of that patchy texture still coming through. Unfortunately, I think that's partly because that texture is now imprinted onto the surface that I am printing to. So yeah, there's only so much at this stage that I can do to undo that. But we still have the darks to go, so that's all the background, the ground mass. So let's just see how this goes. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I'll see you in the next one.